Welcome back on this morning to These Things Are Written as we are continuing to look at Isaiah chapter 5. On Friday, we looked at that amazing parable of the vineyard, the story that Isaiah tells to pull the people of Israel, of Judah and Jerusalem into his story to show them that he desires them to change or judgments coming upon them. This is really a continuation of that part. And I'm going to be looking at verses 8 through 17 today. And as I do it, as I've been doing in the past, I am going to look at a few verses at a time and break them down as I read them in that way. So here we go with verse 8. Woe to those who join house to house, who add field to field, until there is no more room. And you are made to dwell alone in the midst of the land. The Lord of hosts has sworn in my hearing, surely many houses shall be desolate, large and beautiful houses without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield but one bath, and a homer of seed shall yield but an ephah. As we see these two verses, what Isaiah is speaking as he speaks the prophecy of the Lord is talking against continually building of wealth at the expense of others. The rich adding land, driving others off until he is all alone. The judgment that he gives in verse 9 is the houses of the rich will be abandoned. Their great vineyards will be unproductive. Their fields will be uncared for. The first of the woes speaks against those who acquire wealth at the expense of others. Continuing now with verses 11 and 12. Woe to those who rise early in the morning, that they may run after strong drink, who tarry late into the evening as wine inflames them. They have lyre and harp, tambourine and flute and wine at their feast, but they do not regard the deeds of the Lord or see the works of his hands. Again, this one seems to be focused maybe on those who are rich, but more on those who are self-indulgent. There is a focus here, if you look at on it, is wine, women, and song, the things that lead them to find that self-enjoyment, self-pleasure, thinking that they have provided all this for themselves, but they do not regard the works of the Lord, it says, or see the works of his hands. They don't realize that all things we have are provided by the Lord, that he gives us all that we need, even as it says in Psalms, God provides all people, even the evil, that food to eat. But in verse 13, he then uses a therefore. Woe to those who are wealthy and focused on driving others out to build their wealth. Woe to those who are all about self-indulgence, self-enjoyment. Therefore, my people will go into exile for the lack of knowledge. Their honored men go hungry, and their multitude is parched with thirst. Therefore, Sheol has enlarged its appetite and opened its mouth beyond measure, and the nobility of Jerusalem and her multitude will go down, her revelers and he who exalts in her. Man is humbled, and each one is brought low, and the eyes of the haughty are brought low. But the Lord of hosts is exalted in justice, and the Lord, holy God shows himself holy in righteousness. Then shall the lambs graze in their pasture, and nomads shall eat among the ruins of the rich. Isaiah is prophesying about the exile that would happen. The exile that could happen with the Assyrians, but will instead, because of the work of Hezekiah turning the people back and trusting the Lord, instead it will happen about 150 years later, as the Babylonians come and take the cream of the crop, so to speak, off into exile, and then later on comes and destroys Jerusalem, bringing more off. The people will be taken from the land. Verse 14 focuses on the death. Sheol, or the pit, or death, has enlarged its appetite and opened its mouth beyond measure. The nobility of Jerusalem and her multitude will go down. Many would die. Many of those who were focused on what they thought best, on expanding land and property, on self-enjoyment and self-indulgence, many of those will die, and the rest will go into exile. Verse 15, man is humbled, each one brought low. The future humbling is from the Lord. The Lord will humble them in his justice and in his righteousness. And the end state we see in verse 17, then shall the lambs graze in the pasture, nomads shall eat among the ruins of the rich. The land will be abandoned as God's people are no longer there to take care of it. As we look at this passage, while it served as a warning to the people then, this one, and as we're looking at tomorrow, they both continue to focus on the woes. How often can we see and find ourselves as building our wealth at the expense of others, perhaps, or focus on self-indulgence rather than what God would have us focus on? There's a little bit of truth in this for all of us. So as we read this, I don't want you just to be thinking of, oh, those Israelites, but, oh, me, what I have done. Repent, and God will heal. We'll see you again tomorrow as we continue with the woes from Isaiah chapter 5, talking more about who they are and what is the result of their sins. We'll see you then. God bless.